So what's new in the Hilltop Saw Shop train division? I was out in the woods yesterday and running a vintage Husqvarna 285 from the 70s. Pretty big saw, pretty heavy. It's got some issues I got to work out. And after I spent a little bit of recreation time with the trains, I'm going to go down into the shop and swap out its fuel line and do some other things because it was running where fired up, runs real good. If you tune it with a screwdriver on the carburetor, you get the mixture right, runs good. But as it would run, it would go to lean and then eventually shut off, acting like fuel starvation. And that's pretty classic if you have a fuel tank vent that's plugged so air can't get in. So as the saw draws the gas out of the tank, it turns into a bit of a problem. As no air goes in, there's some vacuum, and eventually the little diaphragm carburetor can't draw the fuel anymore and it stops. So, I'll have to engineer a tank vent probably, because nothing like that's been made for those saws in probably 30 years. But you see, that's why coming up here is recreation, because usually you can mishmash things from multiple generations, and there's parts that can be made to pretty much make anything roll around the track. Case in point, right here. Before I get to that, I've been looking for one of these to go behind my orange New Havens, and I got an orange New Haven like I did in the last video that I'm going to use to allow me to build a AA setup for those Alco FAs 232s. So I needed a caboose, and I've been looking at these now for quite some time, figuring that combination of having a little spare money and the right price, right time, right attitude, I would strike, and that happened. I ended up with this for, I don't know, maybe 35 delivered. I didn't think that was a bad number for this caboose. And I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at inside. It looks like possibly someone has a different light in there. We'll figure it out. But it's pretty typical of the era. Built in 189 by Lionel. All plastic, one-piece truck, so it's not the greatest, but it has the tapered wheels and not a lot of run time if you look at that roller. You can put that on a magnet track and operate the couplers if you want. So we're going to run this today. Detail, it's okay. Ladder's wire. It's got the little brake handle. But it does not have a smoke generator. The funny thing is it came with a box for a different road name. And that particular caboose that was in the box, not this one, had a smoker. Kind of like my Pennsylvania. And I think that's pretty cool. But I just like these. And the theme you're going to see is there's a town in New York State called Maybrook. And back in the day, I guess is the right way of putting it, 40s, 50s, 60s, before the 70s, it was kind of a hub where several of the railroads basically interchanged there. And New Haven was one. Of course, that was the way to get to New England. And there were others. We'll get into those over time. So the theme of my rolling stock is to collect road names that had gone through that town, Maybrook. Now, why Maybrook? Well, because a young fella, when I was young and foolish, I guess, I raced dirt bikes. I did it for a long time, into my 40s. But some of my early days racing was before they had motocross. I called it scrambles. And there were several tracks in that Maybrook area, on the western side of the Hudson River in New York, probably because there was a pretty strong technical community and the railroad types were there. But motorcycle racing was actually pretty common then. And they had 3 or 4 different tracks up there, you know, and I raced them. And I used to go across the tracks to get to a couple of those places. You go underneath the tracks or across them. And I always wondered what trains went through those tracks, because of course that in the 70s, a lot of that stuff was slowing down, right? So it didn't have the huge traffic it had in prior years. And it wasn't until now, many years later, you know, I started learning about the history of the railroads that went through that particular town, interchange in that particular spot. And it kind of is where the hobby is going for me, you know, starting to come up with trains that have those road names like this one right here. So anyway, so we're going to run that. Now, another thing I've learned is these cars that Lionel did, they evolved for sure, you know. And the quality is different too. Now this one here says it was built in 76. I don't know if that's true or not, but it says 76. And this one here says 74. Now it looks to me like the actual plastic injection molded shell of that particular car is the same. Well, it is. Even the trucks are the same basic injection molded plastic, so one piece and all that. But what's different is this one here has a steel mounting plate for these trucks and a rivet, which makes them kind of hard to take on and off, obviously. But the steel mounting plate's got one little screw right there, right? The rest of it's the same, and this obviously was an earlier version based on the build date. Well, Fun Dimensions did their thing and figured out how to make steel plastic, and that's a plastic carrier for that truck. And that's what I need to replace. Instead of having a rivet, it's got this stupid looking little spear there, plastic thing. So they figured out how to take some money out of this. But it also changed my approach, is I'm not going to take this one apart to make this one run. I could just run a drill in there, put it right on there. But I think I'm just going to replace both of these. I might get some different trucks and replace both of those and just get rid of that plastic, you know. And in the meantime, I've got a couple of options sort of cobbled together. Something that I can pull around the track, you know, maybe just attach this K-line to that plastic. We'll do something. That's the point. Kind of figure something out that'll work for now. And the other thing I got is these. I'm getting more of these. I figured before the tariffs hit, these are regulator rectifiers you've been seeing me use quite a bit now. But these are lower amperage, and I want to use these really just for the accessories. They're pretty much fixed. They're not adjustable. And brings it down to 6 volts. So it takes AC in and output 6 volts DC. So I'm going to start running things like these accessories off the track. So I went and got a couple of those while they were still like $3, you know. So there's the backdrop. And I also continued on doing 2-axle pulls, and I pretty much ran out of time to where the video would have been way too long, but there was a couple of honorable mentions that I figure I ought to show you because it was kind of funny. Well, really the first thing to do on any car, and I've already done it on this one, is to drop a little oil in. And on these, I just stuck it right down there. With this, just put a little drop of oil right in there. So I need to do the same thing on the hopper, right? This Alaska Railroad Boy, those are twisted up looking trucks, you know that? I'm not a fan of this era. So if I can figure out how to upgrade them radically, I probably will. That might be part of the channel, you know, something we do. But a little bit of oil makes a big difference in how these things roll. And I always worry on these plastic trucked cars that whatever I use for an oil doesn't attack the plastic over time. But anyway, before we get to the train with that, on the bottom track I already have sort of a New England focus. And so maybe what I do is do two things at once, is get the bottom track with the new caboose and add the Alaska Railroad car. Look at this ridiculous thing. Let's start with that, pulling some scale-o cars, because that's fun. It's not my idea. Somebody else's idea. But after I'd done my video, I threw that stupid thing on there, and it surprised the heck out of me. If I put a little bit of weight on this thing, it's going to be a pulling little beast for a 2-axle locomotive. And what this is, that's the DC offering that Lionel made, and I kind of hacked it up a little bit and stuck a regulator rectifier in there that can handle about 2 amps. So I want to do that one, and this one right here, because I had mentioned that in the video. So anyway, let's get things going. On. And bottom track, turn that on. Oh, interesting. Oh, gotta show you this. This racket here. Remember I was talking about using regulator rectifiers to power accessories that were originally DC? Well, this has got a little DC can motor. Right now its rubber band is too loose, so it doesn't work. I have to replace that rubber band. And this is a Lionel station that's really for, I guess, the larger scale, but I want to make it work because my wife wants to make it work. So, you know, I ran it with this, but I thought it would be more cool if it had a LED readout of the voltage. So the other thing is I got a bunch of these because I use these, and I'm going to bring these down to the club track to help wire that. I got 5 of those. So turn that off. Let that just stay down there. But I'm going to have a lot more of this type of device to power everything from lights to windmills and all that stuff instead of using batteries. All right, let me get rid of the strobe effect before I have some kind of a strobe. Some people don't like strobes. All right, where's the controller for that? It's around here somewhere. This one, 8. That makes it go straight, no blinking. All right, let's go back to the lower track. That is a 225 that has the regulator rectifier inside that, so I have it capped at like 7 or 8 volts, so it goes 1 speed around the whole track. But even when you do that, you still have low speed control. And for whatever reason, the pull-mores like that DC. All right, we're going to replace this caboose right here. I'll put it behind the zoo train with that caboose. Let's get that done. I'm probably going to take the motor that's on here, or the locomotive, and put a New Haven. It's not like I don't have a few, you know. Come on, get on there. All right, let's get this going. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 O scale or scale O cars. So I shut that off to cut the background noise. I now have 10 scale O cars. Let's see if it'll go now. Oh. Yeah. It does, but the coupler let loose. Let me see if I can fix that. Let's try this again. I can see the coupler on that Rock Island was a little low. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 12 Scalo cars behind this little Lionel, DC only converted to AC, 8700 Rock Island. Let's see if it'll pull it. All right, now that's 13 making that car. It's pretty heavy, so I think we're going to be at the limit here with either this car or the next car. That makes 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I think this is going to give it some trouble. That's a lot of cars for any locomotive. This will be car number 15. Poor thing. Alright, this one makes 16. And it's really heavy. It's an MTH. But we'll see. You kidding me? I'm not going to make it struggle another lap. Let's just say this is the limit. Now that's impressive. You think about it, that's actually quite impressive, that little locomotive. Can you believe that that might be the two-axle champion? Let's go back to the two-axle champion steam locomotive from the last video. Yeah, this one right here. Now, the interesting thing is both that locomotive and this one here are can motor driven. Wouldn't be surprised if it's the same exact can motor. And by adding a tender, that's actually one more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That's 17 cars. So if this thing pulls it, I'll be, quite impressed. But not surprised. Nope. Can't do it. Son of a gun. Look at that. Can you believe that that thing right there outpulled that one right there? That is absolutely amazing to me. How about the Magna Traction champion from the last video? Let's see if it can outpull this little DC toy right here. All right, let's see if this 2-axle Magna Traction locomotive that was the class champion from the last video can pull these 16 cars. Got to get the track voltage up. Yeah, it's impressive. I'm not going to beat on it. I'm going to get to the point where they come off the track, but you got to admit that's pretty impressive. That thing there matches that right there. Yeah, that's its limit. That's 20 cars. And then you give it a little bit of a nudge, you get it around. So 19 cars I got out of this thing. So it actually pulls more of these scale O cars than the cars I used in the last video. And that's a lot of car right there. That's a lot of train. That's 20. The weavers in the back were late, so I figured that's like one real car. So we're going to call it 19 for this. But you got to give that thing credit. That's that's pretty amazing. Let me see if I can come up with a AA concept and see how that deals with these cars. Let's see if this thing will run. It's been a while since I've run this thing.